Hi everybody. Today I'm going to start with some topics that I cover in my book about alcoholism and addiction, Last Call. There's actually 3 books. This one is a workbook, and it is to help alcoholics. And this one is to help families of alcoholics, because that's going to be vastly different words that you need to hear. If you don't know, I was an alcoholic for over 20 years, and I have been sober now for 6 years. And it's going to be there's going to be a lot of information, but where I want to start today with this series, this will be the first of the Last Call series of videos. What I want to talk about first is boundaries, burdens, and narcissists. That sounds pretty interesting, doesn't it? Well, I think it's going to be helpful to a lot of you who are dealing with somebody else who is an alcoholic. If you are, family, loved ones of someone else who is deep in alcoholism right now, you're probably going to be familiar with some of these things. Boundaries. Boundaries are for you. Boundaries are for you, and you are the one that has to enforce them. They are not going to willingly comply with your boundaries. They will play jump rope back and forth with them all the day long. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say boundaries, it's count yourself lucky that you haven't needed to know that so far. I follow a page or a group on Facebook for families of alcoholics to have support, and it's not associated with Al-Anon. So I follow this page, and largely this page is just a place for people to vent and receive less than helpful advice. It is not helpful at all, and that's why I wrote these books. Plus, I've gone through it myself. Like I said, I was an alcoholic. And so I'm well familiar with that side of it. My husband has been sober for 3 years, and praise God for that. But the first few years of my sobriety, I was still living with an alcoholic. And then his son moved in with us. He is also an alcoholic, and that is ongoing. He does not live with us right now. That's not what I mean. That did not last long. I had to draw some boundaries. And so that's why I am so familiar with boundaries. It might come to the point where you have to tell somebody, you cannot stay here with us. That's if you drink, then my boundary is that you can't live here. And you have to enforce that. Otherwise, they're just going to run all over you. I read a lot about people who are having trouble enforcing boundaries, either with like a spouse or someone that's close to them. And it's so hard to enforce because you think that you are being mean, or you think that you're helping whoever it is. When in fact, a lot of the time what you're doing is the exact opposite of helping. You're not only hurting them by not making them take accountability for their own actions and the consequences thereof. You try to run in and rescue them and prevent those consequences, then you're not doing them any good at all. Plus, you're also hurting yourself. It will be an ongoing thing and take over your life if you let it. They're not going to stop on their own. They're not going to stop making you miserable on their own, and they're not going to stop drinking unless they want to. They're not going to sit and think one day and say, I've been really unfair to Dad, and I've been mean, I've been narcissistic, and a little sociopathic, and man, I need to apologize for that and do better. That ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. So don't fool yourself, don't kid yourself, and don't live in a fantasy world. It's not going to happen. Nobody quits drinking until they are good and ready. Not if you cannot love someone out of addiction. You can't shame them out of it. You can't coddle them out of it. You can't enable them out of it. And boy, am I familiar with enabling. We'll get more into that. This is not about enabling today. That's a long topic. Boundaries. What does God say about boundaries? And I take this also from my book, Verses for the Middle of the Night. You are going to find a lot of things in here very, very helpful to you. A lot of topics. There are some hard topics, some dark, for desperate times topics, and scriptures for every single one of them, along with my commentary about how well I understand these topics. Because when we go through something, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to help other people who might be going through the same thing and need some help. So you're going to see, it's not called boundaries in this book. There's a chapter called Difficult and Toxic Relationships, Burdens and Rest, and also a chapter on frenemies might be helpful to you to identify exactly what a narcissist or narcissistic behavior is if you're not familiar with it. And if you're not familiar with it, well, I imagine you know somebody that fits that bill. But if you're not having to deal with someone like that right now, count yourself lucky. But there is a lot of information like that. There's some in the book itself, Last Call, but this workbook for families, this could be invaluable information to you to help you through. And this might not be something that you're going to want the alcoholic person in your life to read. This is for you. You might want to put that away where it's for your eyes only. Now, what does the Bible say about narcissists? I could go through a long list of scriptures, but I chose these two for now because I don't want to go too long on these videos. 2 Corinthians 6:17. Wherefore come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. That's about separating yourselves from them, taking a step back, maybe even going no contact. That seems cold, but you have to do what is right for you, and you're actually protecting yourself, protecting your mindset, your headspace, your emotions, your mental health, sometimes even your physical health, or even your physical safety, if it comes to that. And hopefully it wouldn't, but some people do have to think about that, and I know that a lot of women in particular, but in general, even like in our situation, you have to make boundaries. You have to, I talked about going no contact. You might have to say, if you're going to continue to talk to me this way, then I am going to have to block you for 24 hours to see if things change. If it doesn't change, then you might have to block them permanently or for a longer length of time. But that might be what this verse might mean to you, coming out from among them and being separate. This can be taken in a lot of different ways, but right now this is what I'm applying it to boundaries. Also, Mark 6:11, and whosoever shall not receive you nor hear you when ye depart thence, shake off the dust from your feet for a testimony against them. Now, in this particular scripture, I realize that Jesus is talking about his disciples and sending them out to teach about him in different cities, and that if such and such particular place won't receive the message that they have to bring, that they're to move on. Okay, so I realize if you're thinking that I'm misunderstanding this verse, I'm not. But it also applies to having to walk away from certain people and situations that are not good for you. And you cannot make anyone change. Don't kid yourself and make yourself think that you can. You can't fix them. You can't. Nothing that you can try will work, I promise you. That person has to be good and ready. It doesn't matter how many times they hit their, or what you think should be their rock bottom. I mean, gosh, the person I'm thinking of has hit rock bottom, or what should have been, like dozens of times. You would think that they would have woken up by now, and yet they sit in prison. And it doesn't sound like their mindset has changed much at all. So nothing you can do is going to work. And when you put that in God's hands, that is absolute freedom for you. You will feel like a weight has been lifted off of you once you realize that it is not on you, because you can't do it. That is going to have to be between them and God. And if they're running from God, hiding from God, there's no place that they can go that God can't find them. And that can either be a scary thing or a reassuring thing. Depends on your viewpoint. And I said in another video earlier today, because I did 2 videos today, I said that how we conduct ourselves can determine how God acts in our lives. How we conduct ourselves, what we do, what we think, what we speak, matters. Everything in this life is a lesson. Everything in this life is a test. And once we realize that God is paying attention to all of that, it's a game changer. I know somebody, and I keep saying somebody, this person made a promise to God and broke it. That's none of my business. That's between them and God. But in between, okay, they said, I will quit drinking if God does such and such. But I'm going to wait and see first if God does such and such. I said, you got it backwards. You need to quit drinking, and God will do such and such in your life. I said, how you conduct yourself is in direct relation to how God moves in your life. Priorities. Okay, we're going to move on to burdens. I'm looking at the time here. I don't want to make these videos very long because I want them to be watchable. And for people to not feel like it's too lengthy to get into. So I want to make, instead of like a big meal, I want to make several smaller meals out of my videos. Nobody wants to watch a 2-hour video. And I don't think I can talk that long either. I'm getting hoarse. Burdens. Identifying what is and what is not your burden to bear. Now, you might realize Galatians 6:2 says, "Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ." What's that mean? That means, for example, if your friend is hurting, if your friend needs something, or if your neighbor needs something, if you see somebody that needs something, you help them. This is not talking about people that are not bearing their own burdens. Because we also see 3 verses later, Galatians 6:5, "For every man shall bear his own burden." Okay, how do we apply this to someone that we love who is an alcoholic? They don't really bear a lot of their own burdens, do they? They're running from their own problems. They're running from something. And sure, I can say this because I'm an old alcoholic. I've been sober for over 6 years now, and I know how it goes. If they are not bearing their own burden, if they're sitting around drinking all day and not working, if they're getting fired from their jobs all the time for drinking at work or going to work drunk, should you pay their bills for them? Should you bear that burden for them? No. I've done it. I have thrown money at the problem because it was easier. Did it help? No. All it did was cost me a lot of money, over $20,000, and make me feel pretty stupid. Because once that person gets what they want, and that this applies to not just the person I'm talking to, anybody, because it happens all the time. I read the same stories on these support groups on Facebook. Same story all the time. Doesn't change. Once they get what they want, it's back to the same old, same old. I've seen it many times with my own 4 eyes. So you have to identify what is and is not your burden to bear. And in this workbook, I have given you a lot of examples. Let's see if I can find some right quick. Half of this is going to be a daily journal, 30-day daily journal for you, that asks you questions and makes you think. The rest of it is for you to write your own story. This can be a safe place that you keep it out of prying eyes, away from prying eyes. Let's see, it might be this one that I'm thinking of. Let's see. I mean, you're going to read all about accountability, consequences, responsibilities, choices, all kinds of good stuff, all the things. I was trying to be very thorough in this. I want to show you just a second. I think it will be helpful to you. Okay. Let them have to experience the consequences of their own actions. Change your response. Stop running to the rescue. You're not their fixer. You are not their fixer. In jail? Shouldn't have broken the law. Again, it's not my responsibility to bail you out. It's in the law's hands. You might think that sounds really mean, but it's not. If you're constantly trying to fix somebody else's problems and keep them from having to suffer the consequences of their own actions, that's your own stupidity. You might do that a few times, and then once you realize, it's like, man, I was an idiot, and I'm not doing that again. Basically, what this is going to show you is whatever they say, they're going to come to you and present a problem as though it is your responsibility to fix it. And they're going to, in their narcissistic way, which is typical of alcoholics, try to make you believe that it is your responsibility, and how dare you not fix this for me? Does that sound familiar at all? Okay. And there are never, it's a never-ending supply of excuses. It's a never-ending supply of, well, I can't because, change your response. Instead of saying, okay, well, I'm going to have to sell something to be able to afford to bail you out. I'm gonna have to put the house up for mortgage again to afford you a lawyer. No, stop it. Say, that's rough. That's tough, and I'm sorry you're going through that, and I'm sure that you'll figure it out. You're a creative person, and I'm sure that you'll work it out, and I'll definitely remember to pray for you. Leave it at that. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And you also do not have to explain yourself either. They'll draw you into a long explanation, make you feel like you're supposed to give them all of your reasons. You don't have to. You don't have to. Let's see. Got fired? Sorry, it's a tough job market, but I hope you find something else and learn not to drink before work or during work. If they come to you, well, I got fired, and they're expecting you to be like, okay, don't worry about a thing. I'll pay your bills. I'll buy your groceries. No, don't, because I've done it, and it is a never-ending cycle, and they become entitled, and I hate that. And then, you know what else you're going to find? You're going to find that there is a lot of bitterness and resentment building up within you, and you feel icky, and you don't want to feel like that. It's like, I have all this hate in my heart, and I don't want to feel like that just because I feel icky. You're going to have to set some boundaries, aren't you? And then you'll feel better. And you might have to do enough stupid things like I did, all these things that I wrote about. You might have to do enough stupid things and spend enough money, and you might have to feel run over enough until enough's enough, and you stand up for yourself, and you stop doing these things, and you change your response, and say, that's on you. That's on you. And in my case, we're talking about somebody that's 36, 37 years old. Come on. I mean, if somebody's old enough to drink and to get into trouble, they're old enough to handle the consequences. I don't care if they're 18, I don't care if they're 21, I don't care if they're older. Old enough to mess up, old enough to deal with the consequences of their own actions. That's the way people learn. And whatever you do, don't sign for anything for them. Don't give them anything that is in your name. That's a subject for another day. We're talking about burdens. I'm going to wrap this up. Narcissists and energy vampires. They know what they're doing. You think, do they really know what they're doing to me? Yeah, they know what they're doing. They're draining you. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. You must cut them off. What does the Bible say about narcissists? There is a passage in 2 Timothy that describes narcissists to a T. 2 Timothy 3, 1 through 7. This know also, that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves. There's a, self-love, and then there is narcissistic self-love, like I should be more important than anyone else. Okay. Lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, trucebreakers, false accusers. They'll turn it around on you and accuse you of the same thing that they're doing. Incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. That's twice we see that. Actually, 3 times that I've read. 2 Corinthians 6:17, Mark 6:11, and 2 Timothy 3:5. From such turn away. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with divers lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of truth. Never able to come to the knowledge of truth. They lie. They will never admit the truth. They'll never admit what they did. There's not a word of truth in their mouth. And I'm not the only one that says that about the person that I've been talking about. Pretty much everyone who knows them says the same thing. It doesn't take too long to figure out a narcissist, and then they can hide with a mask for so long, and then that mask will fall off. And I wanted to also read you Matthew 7:6, just because I'm sure if you're dealing with someone who's an alcoholic, you have had many, many conversations and have talked yourself blue in the face time and again. And you gave it your all. And you drained yourself for them to pour into their cup. You emptied your cup to pour into theirs. And they went, psh, they threw it out. Didn't they? They probably didn't remember it the next day, after you had tried so hard to help them. Maybe even talking to them about God. And, they can cry and look really super sincere with those crocodile tears and say, I'll do better. I really want to. And then the next day they've forgotten all about it and do the same thing. Give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. Matthew 7:6. Yeah, they'll turn around and bite you. All right. That's all for today. Last call. The book and the workbooks are available on Amazon. You can also find the link on sherryamscott.com. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.